What's going on, everyone? Reroll is back in the meta for TFT in patch 13.6. The top two comps right now, it's got to be Zeri Reroll and like a Quickstriker Reroll. So we're going to learn how to play those comps along with everything else like Experiment Twitch, Bruiser Mundo. Twitch is back. He got a buff in the recent patch, so he is definitely back. It's actually a surprise to me. I thought he'd be decent, but not like one of the better comps. But I think right now Twitch is extremely powerful. So what you can do right now is build a Rageblade, works on both Twitch and Zeri, so it's pretty nice to kind of flex between those two. In the A tier, Family is back. Very fun comp to play, very good comp for beginners in case you were playing TFT for a bit, but maybe don't have like the full grasp of everything, but do want to get better. Kogmaw Scar Reroll, also back. 3-cost reroll, and then after that we have a bit of a drop off to Heimerdinger Corki Flex, Enforcer Vi, Sorcerer Zoe, all the usual suspects. The Emissary Swain comp dropped down a bit because they nerfed it quite a bunch, and then Blackrose Flex is just generic AP, play whatever you hit. Ambushers, still decent comp. Emissary Ambessa Corki, still decent. Form Swappers, decent, but hard to hit. That's why it's a bit lower. Like, I think Form Swappers are one of the stronger comps, but it requires hitting like 4 exact units, which is pretty difficult to do, one of them being a legendary, and they're pretty useless if you have 3 of them. Well, not useless, but much weaker than having 4. Conqueror's good in special situations. Dominators, not bad. They got a small buff, not enough to kind of put them in the limelight. There's both the Dominator classic build with Silco and then the reroll build. And then lastly, we have Rebel Zoe. The big nerfs of this patch, no surprise, Renata reroll and Urgot is dropped down to the B tier, arguably C tier. I don't think they're very good. And then also the Visionary Heimerdinger build, like Visionary got nerfed and all those other things got nerfed as well. So let's get into how to play each and every one of these comps, but first a quick word from Hero Wars. Hero Wars may look like a simple game, but it's actually got deep, intricate strategy. When you first start playing Hero Wars, you pick some heroes, you press a button, and possibly win. But then as it gets harder and harder, your heroes start dying, your enemies outplay you, and you realize you need to start thinking about some tactics. That's where hero synergy, PvP strategy, and hero progression come into play. Just picking strong heroes doesn't guarantee victory. Instead, you gotta find heroes that actually work together. Some are good against tanks, others counter mages, but building the right team is an art form. Lastly, you need to upgrade your skills wisely, manage your resources carefully, and consider all enemy weaknesses. Alright, I picked the best hero, so why did I still lose? Oh right, I didn't counter my opponents properly. Let's try a different strategy. Looks like this one's working. That's why Hero Wars isn't just a clicker, it's a game for those who love to think. If you've already assembled your dream team, I've got some exciting news for you. I'm thrilled to introduce Peach. This is a brand new hero with a dark and mysterious past. Players will embark on a 4-week adventure to uncover the new hero's story and get an exclusive opportunity to be the first to unlock and upgrade a new Guardian. This is going to be available starting on February 16th, exclusively for Hero Wars Alliance players. So what are we waiting for? Download Hero Wars from my link down in the description below or in the QR code and see how far you can go. So the good news I have today for everyone is that the top comp right now is very easy to play. It's just a Zeri Reroll comp, and you just play Sniper and Watchers. That's really all there is to it. Watchers got a big buff, so you just reroll for Zeri 3-star, get her to 3-star, level up to level 7, reroll for Scar 3-star as your main tank, put some items on him. Maybe you hit a Garen, throw some items on him too. You could also combine it with Vander as your tank, but mainly you're focusing on Scar, and then you just end up winning a ton of rounds. There's not too much rocket science behind this build. It's been the same board you'd always play the entire set for a Sniper Watcher board, and you also have the added bonus of Zeri and Scar both being Firelights. For the anomaly, it's quite important. Like, I'd say I prefer putting it on Zeri. There's like a bunch of stuff that works, but pretty much anything that makes her attacks a bit better, such as like Mini-Me, Center of the Universe, Titanic Strikes, are all very well and welcome. A bunch of other things work on her though. I'd say be like medium picky with the anomaly. Normally when you play reroll comps, you want to be highly picky, but I'd say with Zeri, she doesn't need like a super exact combo, but obviously you still want something good, but you don't want to spend too much gold either, because getting Scar 3 and Zeri 3 is super duper important. For Scar, any of the tank anomalies will do. There are honestly so many of them, I can't even list all of them, but I'd say if I had to choose between having perfect anomaly or hitting my 3-stars, I'd say I'd prefer hitting my 3-stars. One thing to watch out when you play this comp is that you do want to be uncontested. I know it's going to be hard because a lot of people are going to be playing it. Like, you might have to just suck it up and be contested. It is what it is. Just be careful and recognize when it's time to cut your losses and play for like a 5th or a 6th, or play for a top 4. In terms of like augment requirements, like having a +1 Firelight or Watcher or something like that is pretty useful. I'm not going to say it's not, but It's not mandatory, but it does put the comp on like the next level, like S+ tier. Next build up we have is going to be Quickstriker Reroll. There's a Sentinel and the Automata version. I think people are liking the Sentinel version with Twisted Fate, Loris, and Akali recently. Pretty solid combo. Like Akali did get some buffs, so she's not useless anymore. Loris very good, and pretty much the way you play this is like you're mainly going for Twisted Fate and Loris, but if you happen to get Akali, you could itemize her up too if you see her a bunch in the beginning, or you could focus more on Akali and Nocturne, going for more of an Automata build with the Quick Strikers, and you could also combine this with the Sentinel build as well. There's a lot of different ways to kind of play this, but pretty much you just play 4 Quick Strikers plus some other things, hit them 3-star, put items on them, and be on your way after that. One thing to note is with Nocturne, you do want a +1 range item, but I'd say for Twisted Fate, you don't really need an artifact item. It's really just Nocturne that makes a really, really good use of it. But very simple comp to play again, like 2 reroll comps in a row, and they're both kind of interesting to use. Next build up we have is Experiment Twitch. I'm so glad Twitch is back. He's one of my favorite units. The Rage Blade, it's just fun to watch, and he just hits everyone. If you ever get the anomaly called Dragon Soul, that's like the most disgusting combo ever on him because he attacks everyone. And the first time you hit someone, you deal an additional bit of damage. So it's a super, super toxic build because it just completely obliterates everyone's boards. I like adding a red buff to Twitch. Most people focus on the Rage Blade plus the Infinity Edge, but I think for third item, red buff is very solid because it helps burn people down and doesn't let them heal back up after you damage everything, because he is an area of effect champion. A lot of people ask me, like, when do I want anti-heal? When do I not need it? Well, it's absolutely required in AoE comps because you really can't have people healing back up. But I'd say in like every comp, it's obviously useful, but definitely mandatory if you're playing AoE. For your main tank, you want to focus on Mundo. He's going to be a pretty solid guy. Not the most tanky in the experiment build, but it is what it is. Make sure you put your Mundo and Twitch on your experiment hexes. For the last hex, Zyra's pretty good to use, or whoever you have your experiment emblem on, that's going to be pretty easy to interchange. And if you are looking for like the emblem version, you just take out Zyra, or you try to go for 7 experiment if you manage to hit Warwick. Another thing to keep in mind with this comp is make sure you don't forget to play Sniper. A lot of people forget about this Caitlyn because they're like, oh, Caitlyn's a legendary. Let me play this build and wait till I hit Caitlyn. But then Caitlyn never comes because she is a legendary unit, so just play Zeri in the meantime, or worst case, something like a Kogmaw. Next build up we have is Bruiser Mundo. It's another Twitch comp. This one focuses on 6 Bruiser. It's definitely much stronger, but you absolutely need this Bruiser emblem to make it work, whereas the experiment version, you don't need the experiment emblem, but Bruiser, you definitely need the Bruiser emblem because that's how Mundo gets so disgustingly tanky. No one can kill him. Twitch builds up his Rage Blade stacks in the back, and you just obliterate everyone over time. Standard leveling for both of these comps, very simple stuff there, and you're going to be more than good to go. Next build up we have are the A tiers. We have Family. Family's finally back. I love this build so much. It's just fun to play. It's like therapeutic in a way, but they buffed like all the units in this comp pretty much, and because of that, it's back. So Violet, Powder, Draven, all 3 of these units are very, very good. I'd say the only thing that you need in terms of items is like maybe a Rage Blade on Draven, and then any attack damage combination of items will work on him. For Violet, any of the classic Bruiser items will work. Just slam items early. That's what I do in this comp. I don't look for like super exact items, but one thing to note is that if you do get artifact items, they are especially good on Violet. So keep that in mind whenever you play this. Some people say like I wouldn't even touch the comp without the artifact items, and that could be true. I don't think it's as important as Nocturne getting them, but it definitely is a big buff to Violet. You know how you find out whether it's a big buff or not? Go to the Explorer tool. Let's filter her for 3 and 4 star, and then go to items. You'll see here that there are a lot of total games with the classic combo like BT, Sterax, Titans, Hand of Justice, things like that. Makes tons of sense, right? But then you look at the average placement of all these artifact items, and it just gets bumped up a ton, right? Like Suspicious Trenchcoat, absolutely nuts on her. Death's Defiance, very nice. Some of the other ones aren't as crazy good, but like Silvermere Dawn, Spectral Cutlass, all those are very, very good. They improve her by like 0.4 placements approximately, like 4.2 to 3.8 or like 3.5 sometimes. So it's an absolutely deadly combo on her. Again, I don't think it's mandatory, but it definitely does help a lot. But the reason why I recommend this comp is because 1-star reroll is very easy to play. You just roll on stage 3-1 to 30 gold, then econ back up, get to 50, and then slow roll after that. Very simple stuff, but very fun comp to play. Artifacts help, emblems help, like +1 family, absolutely incredible. +1 pit fighter, same thing. Next up, we have more of the normal comps like Corki, Heimerdinger Flex, this is the Academy builds. This is more of what we're used to. They're still strong comps. They're just a little bit lower right now, but still very solid. Corki, Heimerdinger duo carry, Alawi main tank. That's going to be the name of the game. Jace if you get into the late game, or Rumble, going to be solid options. Nothing's really changed with this comp. It is a bit weaker now because of some of the nerfs, but nothing too crazy going on there. Next build up we have is the Enforcer, Vi, and Caitlyn. This comp got nerfed. Caitlyn got hit a bit, and 8 Enforcer got hit a bit. I'd say the comp is still good though. It's not giga OP, but if you get all your pieces, it's going to be very solid. So all those times where you're like borderline on whether you should go for this comp or not, you should not go for it anymore. But all those times where it's like very obvious to go for this comp, still go for it. You're still going to get good results. That's pretty much what the too long didn't read of the patch notes are for this comp, because both 8 Enforcer and Caitlyn got nerfed. But it's just a standard leveling emblem comp. If you hit the emblem, great. If you don't, you can't really play it. Next build up, we have a Sorcerer Zoe. I like playing like, okay, so there's Sorcerer Zoe, there's Emissary Sorcerer, and then there's Blackrose Flex. Like all of these play Sorcerers in some way, shape, or form, and getting a +1 emblem for these comps are very, very useful. Not mandatory, but again, useful. So I wouldn't play these comps without it unless I get perfect items for them and I natural some of the units. You know how we have those games where we get the early forecasts, like for example, we're playing Sorcerers and then you just see a Zoe in like stage 3 or something like that. It's like in those cases, like, yeah, you could go for it without the emblem. But in other cases, you're like, maybe I flex around a little bit. Maybe I see some more shops and go in different directions. But I'd say for Sorcerer, like the 6 Sorcerer buff is very solid, and hitting it is pretty difficult because you either have to run really bad units such as like Lux and Zyra, or you have to hit LeBlanc. That's why the emblem makes it much easier to play. The emblem also is very useful on other characters because it gives a lot of ability power. It's essentially putting like a Rabadon's death cap on them. But overall, these comps are still very solid. Like they did get nerfed a bit. They nerfed 6 Sorcerer a touch, but not by much. But if you have the items for it and you're going AP, like what other comps are you going to go? Like you have Sorcerers or Dominators to really choose from, and also Visionary. But Visionary got like dumpstered. Dominator's not that great, so you're left with Sorcerer. So that's why I think attack damage is better than ability power on this patch, and I'll talk more about how I will be approaching the patch at the end of this video. Next build up, Emissary Sorcerer. It's the same concept of the build, except you're playing with Emissaries, going for a Swain carry. Swain got nerfed, so it dropped a little bit, but just 3 cost reroll for this comp. Nothing too special. It's a very, very fun comp to play. After that, we have Blackrose Flex. You have Sorcerers with the Blackrose. You have Visionary with the Blackrose, and you also have like the regular Blackrose. You also have Dominators with Blackrose. There's so many different combinations of this comp. But Blackrose Flex is really good if you have AP items and you don't really know which units you're going to hit, which is kind of what we talked about before. Like if you hit the Sorcerer emblem, great, fantastic, happy birthday to you. But if not, you still have other options. And because you are not forcing a comp, you have a lot more outs, so you can use your gold much more efficiently. It's like if you're drawing like 10 cards, trying to open up like a rare Pikachu or something like that, it's pretty hard to get. But if you have 10 cards and you're trying to open up like a Pikachu, a Charmander, a Squirtle, and a Bulbasaur, it's much easier to hit like at least one of those things, right? Like I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but there are a lot more options for you. That's kind of what playing Blackrose Flex is like. Like you only need to buy 1 pack and you'll generally get something, whereas the other comps you have to like open a lot of packs in order to get exactly what you want. So that's the beauty of this comp, and it's also just like a very nice like fast 9 comp, fast 8 comp. Either or works depending on how the pace of the game is going, and it has a lot of late game options to like GG people. So a lot of people wonder like, how do I win games? Because like a lot of times the reroll comps, they're not good at winning games unless you just egregiously high roll. Oftentimes reroll comps are really good for getting like top 4s because they generally fall off because they focus only on 1 or 2 units, whereas the level 8 comps, they have like 4 different carries, 5 different carries that they could eventually itemize as they get later and later into the game, when they get more resources, when they get more items. So they just have a lot of different options. Meanwhile, like Nocturne reroll, like your Nocturne is the only unit that matters on your board, right? So that's kind of why they get outscaled, and Blackrose Flex is a great way to scale into that late game because you have a lot of different options to use for units to itemize. Like you have in this middle one right here, I just picked a random one. You have like Heimerdinger, Malzahar, LeBlanc, Jace, and Elise. Was that like 5 different units? You could also play 6 costs as well. Like there's so many other things you could play and lots of different possibilities. That's what's really good about those comps. Next one up we have is Ambusher. We have the Smeech comp. Smeech is pretty good. He's not anything that crazy in terms of the other reroll comps, such as the Zeri and the Nocturne and the Akali and the Twist of Fate, but he still has a space of his own, you know? The dangerous thing about reroll comps is that when one reroll comp is good, it's only okay. When like 3 reroll comps are good, then the reroll gets dangerous, because as rerolls are playing with each other, they make it easier for the other person to hit their unit. So if there's a lot of other 3-cost rerollers, like if there's a Kogmaw player, if there's a Twist of Fate player, then Smeech becomes very easy to hit, and then you just get like a free game of this. You don't have to roll too much, and you are able to kind of build a strong board for much cheaper. It's like having a sale, right, at the supermarket. You just get the same exact thing that you normally get, but you don't have to spend as much money. But depending on what version you play, there's Camille, there's Smeech, and Echo. You want to do either 2 costs, 3 costs, or standard leveling. Obviously for Camille, you want to do 2 costs. For Smeech, you want to do 3 costs. For Echo, you want to do standard. But I will warn you, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get your Echoes in this comp, because again, everyone's playing Zeri, or not everyone, like at least one person's going to be playing Zeri in your game, so one person is going to be contesting that unit. Luckily, Scrap is less played though. But next build up we have is the Emissary build, one of my favorite builds. It's just like a little bit lower right now in terms of priority for getting everything set up, because it's just like an awkward comp to play, because you need the 4 emissaries. So only play this if you have like a lot of gold in your game, maybe on like a gold subscription portal. Hit the board, like I rarely see it lose, right? And there's like so many people to itemize. Again, it goes into the point before I was saying, where when you have a comp with a lot of units to itemize and you're able to get late into the game enough where you can itemize everyone, we have like Vi, Garen, Ambessa, and Corki. That's like 4 different units. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 2 is 24. How many games do you get 24 components? Not that many, but that's why it's really, really good in the super late game. It's just kind of hard to hit, and if you don't win streak in the early game, you might just bleed out before you hit this comp in stage 4. Because once you do hit stage 4, unless you high roll 4 emissary, you're going to be losing a lot of rounds, because people are going to have legit boards and you will not. But that's going to be the main summary for most of the good comps out there. I want to do a special shout out to 2 comps in the weird tier that I have, like the special tier, which are like all the augment required comps. And the first one up is going to be Gloves Off Vander. Still play this comp. Very, very good. Like, it's highly rated. Vander's very solid, and you could also combine it with like the family comp. You could combine it with a bunch of other different comps, but overall it's just a very solid build. Nothing too crazy going on there. Just get Vander 3, itemize him with like all the frontline bruiser items, use Garen as your other tank, and yeah, you could play this version you see here, or you could play the regular family comp. Doesn't really matter too much. Next build up we have is the Crimson Pact Vladimir. This one has 2 different versions. There's a Blackrose version, and then there's a Watcher version. I think both work. Doesn't really matter which one you kind of go for. Just make sure you get a 3-star Vladimir and put Rageblade, Archangels, and Gunblade on him, and you're going to be good to go. Like, everything else doesn't really matter that much. But just to sum up at the top, how am I going to be approaching this patch? Well, first of all, I'm going to be praying for reroll openers. Zeri, Quickstriker family, that's going to be really nice stuff. Maybe I get an emblem for them. Maybe I get a Rageblade for Zeri right away and like a good item holder for it. And then by the time I get to stage 3, hopefully I have a couple copies of Zeri. Quickstriker reroll. Maybe I get an artifact item early, go for the Nocturne. If not, like Twist of Fate's also an option. After that, getting an emblem comp is going to be crucial. Bruiser Mundo, Experiment Twitch, same thing. Any of the Sorcerer stuff we talked about before. Enforcer's obviously another option. And then lastly, if you don't get any of these awesome conditions, let's say you lost the lottery or something like that, and you just have to go to the default AD or APs, I'd say right now AD is a bit better. I'd go for like Experiment Twitch, just hard force it every single game. Heimerdinger Flex, also decent, focused around Corki. And then of course, like any Corki build, still very possible. But after that, for AP, any of the Sorcerer, Blackrose, Flex, Dominators, even Rebels are playable. So that's going to be the direction there. But pretty much it's going to be a reroll meta. Maybe they patch it, maybe they don't. I personally like reroll metas. I think they're fun. And you have the option to also just like not go for them, and then you get to hit everything else much easier too. So I know some people hate it, but I personally don't really mind it. It kind of depends on what mood I'm in when I'm playing, I guess. Or none of this matters. It just matters if you hit whatever you're playing in your game, right? Like reroll, fast 9, fast 8, like who cares? Like we just want to hit, and if we don't, we're gonna feel bad. But let me know your thoughts down below. What do you think are gonna be your favorite comps of the patch? And also, you can submit your videos for the coaching sessions on the website bunnymuffins.lol/meta, and don't forget to check out Hero Wars.